Yeah, let's talk game changers. It's always it's always great that your workshop is in the main conference room because then you think that's the biggest audience. But the issue is, of course, how can you bring people in a workshop setting in a big conference room? So yeah, if you feel ready to move forward, I would welcome it very much. But at least we are all now in the center. And let me start by apologizing. You're expecting here my colleague Kanan Drew, who is a woman, who is from India, who is extremely charismatic. And now you have to do with me because she fell ill. It's basically her work on game changers that I will share. And basically the idea of this workshop is to talk through three models of scaling that we see in the world and to explore how you link with your business to that. The basic idea has been presented here many times already on this stage. Access to justice is not available for many people, depending on how you calculate. And this is a world average from access to justice data from the World Justice Project. And what you basically see is that a lot of the money is made in the field of government, police, prisons, courts, prosecution, legal aid. And there's a little bit of private law firms that work for individuals. And there's a lot of volunteer and self-help. And if we want to bridge the access to justice gap, something like this should happen. And we should let the institutions move towards serving the people instead of mostly serving big companies and governments and people with deep pockets. Private legal services in this field should grow, but we all know that the access to justice problem will not be solved by the legal profession as we have organized it now. So a lot will have to happen on the market. Innovative, standardized, and scalable services will be needed. And yeah, we call them game changers. It's a bit of innovation lingo. Many people hate it, so excuse us for that. But in a way, it works because what we are telling, it's not coming from small changes inside law firms, courts, etc. Something different needs to happen, and luckily this is happening. In our research, we have identified 7 promising organizational and financial models. People are working on them. If you look at them, they could be scalable. If you look at them, they could be financially sustainable. And they are in the pilot phase in many places. So we will talk about community justice services. We will talk about one-stop dispute resolution, and we will talk about user-friendly contracts. That was a topic coming up as well, having good contracts for prevention of conflict and problems. Today we will not talk about 4 other game changers that we see growing in the world, which are online supported information advice platforms. We are not too sure of them, but some of them seem to be promising in that they do not only give people information and advice, but also a kind of problem-solving representation in courts, and that might be a game-changing model. We see a whole range of prevention services. from tools to protect your house against burglary, to helping people to solve neighbor relationships in a friendly way. And we see financial redress platforms. If you have been flying in a way that I have been told, some of you will probably claim back some money from airlines over the next few days. And we see also very promising platforms, for instance, for social security in India, where a company called Hakdashak is helping people to claim social security with a very sophisticated network of IT platform and local women or men who, for $1, help people to fill in the forms and access to their social security benefits. So there are promising organizational and financial models. And I'm following up a little bit on my talk of this morning with what is your role in this? And maybe that's a moment for a pause. In order to make your work effective, do you actually need game changers, or can you find your way with the current legal services and paying for them? Who wants to comment on that?
I think we need them to challenge us. We really need them to challenge us as well. And, because also our other services and
Yeah, yeah.
other services, so we really need them to get the change done.
And you're an innovation manager. In what direction are you looking for game changers?
In the field of legal tech,
Yeah.
so a lot of them, and also, I think it's not only in the field of legal tech, it is also at the places where people are, when a live event happens or something big happens, then that is also some places you can.
In the local relationship where the crisis occurs.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Other views on game changers?
I think in order to bring change, you need disruption. And a game change brings disruption to what is a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
traditional, archaic system of justice that we
Yeah.
have that is privileged. So I think that game changes.
It's a
I
game,
really thought I
technical
had a
game
loud
changer.
voice. That's a game changer. So I do think that disruption brings change.
Yeah.
And that is what we require. And the only way to do that is through the game changes itself. And I think that part of the disruption is going to come from legal tech.
Yeah. Yep, please.
There is a tenet that says the least likely event produces the most information. And so if you think back in your professional experience, when you've had those events, the amount of growth that has come out of those.
Yeah, yeah. So in looking for game changers, we should look for the unlikely events happening, and maybe the change will come from there. Yeah, yeah. One of the questions I saw on the great online tech, legal tech interface for this conference is mediation. Do you believe in mediation? Is mediation a game changer? It's not on this list. Do you see mediation as a game changer? Yes, please.
Yes, I see it actually as a game changer, even if not so many people believe in it, even in Switzerland, where I come from. But combined with legal technology, and then we are speaking about ODR and online dispute resolution.
Yeah.
I think that can be a game changer, actually. Yes. Or no?
Yeah. Yes or no?
When you're talking about game changers, it's interesting because a lot of the discussion is around the provision of the actual legal services. So I would think a lot of the disruption, as my colleague from South Africa mentioned, could come from actually how do you access a client? Because there's a lack of knowledge of of the ability to be protected. So I think that's an enormous, that part of that 55%, some of it is that people might not even know how to access it, actually.
It's the communication channel to the client where you see most game changing?
Well, I think obviously it's a balance of what everyone has said, and I agree with all my colleagues that have spoken before, but I do think that actually accessing people, their knowledge of legal insurance is also requires a disruptive thinking about it, because we've always distributed in a very similar way. And so maybe that's where disruption is required.
Yeah, it could be that in the channels for communication with your clients in when they buy the service, when they use the service. Yeah. Let me reflect a little bit on mediation. I was very much struck by a saying of one of the English gurus about access to justice, Hazel Gann. And she said something like, mediation without adjudication is the sound of one hand clapping. And in a way, that is what you see if you use a conflict resolution perspective. If there is a shadow of the law where some adjudicator will tell you what is the fair outcome if you don't reach agreement, then mediation is a very effective way of really solving the problem. We tend to talk about mediation not as one service, but as a combination of interventions. I think we talk about it as one thing, and it is very different how different mediators do it, and there's components that are very different. Just listening to people, respecting them as a person, suggesting objective criteria to them, making them negotiate about outcomes. These are all very specialized, different interventions which require a different approach. So mediation is to us, it's more like a toolbox. And what's missing from this toolbox is the option to go to somebody who says, okay, if you can't agree, I will tell you what you should have agreed if we look into the law, if we look into the specific situation. It should be linked to education to be effective. Otherwise, you sell it to people who are already very reasonable, you tell people during mediation, I see your point. Probably you would get a lot more when you would go to court. But that would take you 2 years and a lot of emotional stress. And then mediation may help people to drop their claim, but is it providing justice? So that's where we see the difficulties. Any reflections on mediations as a game changer and what's missing?
I just thought that my wife is a mediator, so it's I see quite closely what happens, and I'm in legal protection insurance. And what happens is mediation is a fantastic tool. And what you've just said, that it's the mediation business is not going about who wins and who can take the most money out of the other one. In all these cases, all of them, these people have high emotional stress when they come into this mediation. They want to get a solution, but both of them feel hurt. And they believe there's a suspicion, they believe that the other one tricked them, but previously, in all of the cases, they had a long-term relationship back. And then they don't want to destroy this relationship, and they are looking for solutions. But it's difficult to get a solution because of their emotional feelings. And if there's a mediator in the middle,
Yeah.
and they can, sometimes they want, very strange, they want to talk to the mediator on their own first. And then only later on they say, okay, no, I'm ready. Now we can come together, 3 of us, and we can work on that. Why mediation is not successful? Because it's not successful in my country at all. And the reason for that is because mediators don't get access to clients. And there are many of them, and they are all very clever people. They've never done business before, and they establish their own small company, or they even have a problem by establishing their company at that stage. So there they are with their knowledge, and they cannot get clients. That's the biggest issue at the moment.
And
the clients go to lawyers,
from your wife
and they do the
that
traditional
her
way.
business is not that great. We all agree probably that the interventions provided in mediation are extremely helpful. We probably also agree that it's not the entire game. You may need an adjudicator also, and you may need a setting where you negotiate in the shadow of the law. And we also see that mediation is not often used. In my country, it's stuck at 5% already for 15, 20 years, mostly in family business. Any experiences here of mediation having been integrated entirely in your business model and being successful? Experience you want to share? Yeah.
As you probably know, Maurits, at DAS, the Netherlands, we incorporated mediation as one of the solutions for our clients. And I'm a big fan of mediation, so promoting it heavily. But it's still at the small stages, even after all those years.
What is the percentage of your claims that are dealt with by mediation?
Well, I don't even think we get to 1%, because it's about 300 cases a year. And
300 cases a year
in
on a total
130,000 cases.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's almost nothing. But of course, our lawyers are also very good in solving problems on their own out of court. So there's also the thing about lawyers thinking, I can do this myself. I don't need a mediator to solve this case, because it's still not very known what the addition is on top of what they can do as a lawyer. But more importantly, I think mediation as it is nowadays is too difficult for people to really understand how does it work, and you need to be
it's a bit of a black box for the clients.
So I don't think it will bridge your gap. It is just an additional service that we should all offer and promote, and keep on promoting that. But it doesn't bridge the gap to make access for justice.
Okay. On its own, there's beauty in it. It should be used, but it should be integrated somewhere. Let me see and zoom in on the 3 game changers I want to put on the table. How we actually asked key innovators in the world in that particular area to sit with us to talk about critical success factors. So these were small workshops of leading innovators in these fields, and we call them justice entrepreneurs because they really are dedicated to scaling these services. So the 3 I want to talk about, and you can find more information about on our website, are community justice services, one-stop dispute resolution, and user-friendly contracts. And actually, mediation types of interventions are in the first 2 very much, because if you talk about community justice services, we talk about elders under a tree in Africa. In many countries, or regions, it's organized in a way where elders working on disputes are somehow elected, organized as a local tribunal. And it's always a combination of letting people talk about their grievances and solving it. And we see justices of the peace in many countries. We see models in Latin America which are very interesting, judicial facilitators in the villages, people chosen also by the community, having a white T-shirt at home that they wear at the moment that they are a judicial facilitator. And I was in courtrooms in rural Latin America where a judge proudly showed how many disputes were resolved by the judicial facilitators in their in the region. In a way, mediation is also a community justice service, and we see a lot of programs in many countries where there's talk about local justice provision, local courts, reinvigorating justice of the peace. So there's a lot of talk about this. So how are you using community justice in your work? Does it play a role? Do you refer people to this kind of mechanisms? Do you support them? Do you make them grow? No. There must be a reason, no? Because you're very smart people, smart companies driven by access to justice and profit. Most of these mechanisms are working with volunteers, so pretty cheap.
I think that we all think like this is something for deep down in Africa or something, and we have sophisticated systems. But actually, like we have in the Netherlands, it's for the neighbor disputes, you have a very well working system where you can just go and
for specific areas, neighbor mediators.
So it's much more lighter than a proper mediation where you have to sign contracts and all that. So it's the access to that is much easier. So we do refer to that in neighbor disputes, because if you go to court in a neighbor dispute, you're sure one of them has to move in the end of the day.
Can I ask? In South Africa is more or less the birthplace of the big paralegal systems we see in Africa. Do you work with them in South Africa?
So we would have funded at some point in time a community justice center in South Africa. So the Legal Resources Center was coming under threat. They were funded by the government. They had lost government funding and they were going to be shut. And we then decided to fund them. We see it as a complementary service. I'm sure others would perceive them as threats, but we see it as a complementary service. And I think it's really important because they serve a demographic that perhaps is not served by LPI.
Yeah.
And for me, the market is wide enough to allow for all of this.
Yeah.
A very interesting thing to point out is that our constitutional court, the way it's set up, is actually set up as if you were granting justice under a tree. It's a circular court. If you ever walked in, I'd invite everybody to South Africa, and your first place to visit is Constitutional Hill. And that is what you see. And the way the court is set up in a circular fashion, you don't see the feet of individuals outside the court. When you walk, you will see just the feet of individuals, because you want justice to be seamless, you want it to be blind to the individual, and you want true, restorative justice, if that's what you want to call at the Concord. So for me, I think community justice centers are simply an ancillary, very important part of social cohesion in a country. Because remember, if this goes unaddressed, what the consequences could be quite dire.
From a South African point of view, we've played probably not the same role as that, and so one of the things about the Constitutional Court, the judges sit at the bottom. It flows down that they serve the people. It's beautiful, and I extend the invite as well. And but we play a role with a community service called Power, which is people opposing women abuse, which is a specific niche where they try resolve specific kind of community issues, and that's in a way similar. We don't see them as competition; they're auxiliary to us, and also in certain cultures we support different cultural alternative dispute resolutions. So there's strong cultural dispute resolutions in like the Muslim community and the Jewish community that are specifically cultural, and we help support that in any way that we can.
Yeah, culture is a word you often hear in connection to community justice services, and probably that is also among the critical success factors for community justice services that our specialists identified. Also on the level of communities, you need to have effective working methods. Even in communities, complicated disputes can arise of which people don't have much, with which people there don't have much experience. So evidence-based working, introducing it into volunteer services that happen at scale in rural communities or in suburbs. Yeah, it's really a challenge. But many countries, justice ministries are, I couldn't say working on them, but they're considering it, and people are asking for it. There's demand for it. Especially for issues like neighbor disputes and other things that are purely local, and domestic violence could be one as well. Monitoring outcomes is identified as do we actually bring peace and justice in these situations? And you need some combination of informal justice and rights-based dispute resolution. You can't have sanctions that are just coming up from the community. Some kind of checks and balances are needed, and scaling. There's lots of projects going on with in communities in small rural areas. We have kind of an overview of what happens in law and development, and we see so many projects that serve 1,000 people in one community or one city successfully, but are so difficult to scale up. So I think it's understandable that it's not big time on your radar yet, but it's probably part of the solution. User-friendly contracts. There's the traditional legal contract put up by a lawyer, and nowadays you can find for every relationship you search and you find templates. Really user-friendly contracts are more like how we talked about from cradle to grave relationship building. We all need to go through our lives, and we enter critical relationships that need some kind of balance, and we need contracts for that. The movement in contracts is a little bit more understandable language, but the real innovation is in visualizing contracts and really trying to make contracts that improve the relationship. How do you only write down in a marriage contract who will get which piece of the house or the money, or do you try to draft something that can help the couple to improve their relationships regularly? I don't know whether you know the work of Stephen Covey, the life guru with a lot of religious baggage. He tried to incentivize people to talk through their marriage once a year and to see what can we improve, what can we do better, to have the children at the table. That's the kind of user-friendly contracts we are talking about. That is the future of contracting if we talk about people-centered justice. There's a lot of open space there, which is difficult again to work on. The critical success factors are, of course, optimizing the user experience, and this is very costly. If you have a small startup doing visual contracting or trying to improve the language, can you really get to an awesome user experience? If we see what is happening here for this conference to get an optimal user experience and what is invested in that, so you really need to go for that. There's showing the benefits. If people have a dull idea about a will or a contract, how can you change this into an image of a contract that can improve your most important relationship, whether it's with your landlord or your wife or your employer? Changing the mindset of lawyers and companies, of course, and a sustainable financial model. A lot of what is offered now on the internet is so-called free, which often means low quality, just people sending out templates, hoping to get into the space of clients who pay an hourly tariff. Have really a sustainable model for contracting. I see some notaries in the Netherlands moving into rethinking this. If you have what they offer as a new product here is a living will. So it's not about what happens after you die, but what happens in the last 15 years of your life. With an aging population, that's an issue everywhere. Can you design something, some kind of platform that updates that living will every year? Because you change, your children change, the situation change, and you want to have some control over the last part of your life. But yeah, that could be lead to a new financial model as well. For instance, paying a small fee every year for a subscription on your living will. A supportive regulatory environment is needed as well. How do we now see whether a contract is good value? What is the quality guarantee for a contract? The logo of the law firm?
Yeah, we use our brand.
You use your brand, and you kind of guarantee by that, okay, this is what you can trust, and both parties can trust it, no? It's not only one and the other is cheated.
No, and they are also paid, so we have business
Yeah.
on them.
Okay,
You
yeah.
can also you can pay for all the documents, so you can always use them and always have the right contracts, and that's for businesses, it's very interesting.
Other experiences from other countries than the Netherlands in user-friendly contracts that you want to share? Models that are useful? Decisions not to do this because it's not profitable? Yeah, please. South Africa and the Netherlands are competing, and where's Germany, France, Belgium?
It's almost going to be a South African-Netherlands
conference. Well, strangely enough, our common law is actually Roman Dutch in origin, so we have a lot in common with the Dutch.
The relationship is clear. Yeah. I don't know whether everything that we brought to South Africa was that okay, but Okay.
Let's just have some appreciation for heritage. So what we do is on our website, we're actually offering free contracts, contract drafting for anybody, members or non-members. It's obviously off a bot, so it's self-generated, it's bot-driven,
Yeah.
and you can actually pull out a contract. I mean, but there is a self-serving element to it because these are potential members. If they have a good experience there, you're driving traffic right back into your business. So if they have problems, they're going to remember what happened. So I think some of these things that when we embed into the business, there's always a good business imperative. So doing good is not just about the warm,
But if
fuzzy
I may
feeling.
challenge you a little bit,
Yeah.
so it's still a marketing tool rather than a product.
Yes, it's free. So it's not really a product.
Are there thoughts about productizing this in this room? Behind you, there's a mic, and in front of you.
Well, I don't know if it's an answer to the question, but what we launched recently is in our LPI products for SMEs or for every professional client, that they have the opportunity, so they have the product, so they pay for it, they pay the insurance premium.
Yeah,
But included in the offering is that we review their contracts before they sign them.
Okay.
So they send the
Yeah.
contract to us, and we give an advice, of course, by the internal lawyers of our company, to what way to, let's say, adjust the contract to make it better from their perspective before signing. And of course, there is also something in it for us, because later on, when conflicts arise based on the contract, we know that when we have to come in as an insurer, that at least the contract is up to our standards, and that conflict handling is one of the topics which is of course part of the contract and which is then written by us. So this is something we offer, and you could say that it's clients pay for it because it's included in the insurance premium
So
which they pay up.
very interesting business model to combine prevention and dispute
idea,
resolution in one offering. Yeah. So these are the critical success factors that innovators in this space identified, and it's good to see that you're in this space. You're thinking on it. You're working on these game changers. The last one is one-stop shop dispute resolution. We probably all saw the book by Richard Susskind on online courts, and he has a very simple model. If people have a problem, give them information. If they can't solve it by themselves with this information, send them to a facilitator, which is probably somebody with a lot of mediation skills. And if they can't work it out, then send them to an adjudicator. It's a model that is surprisingly self-evident and also surprisingly difficult to implement. There's one example that always comes back: the Civil Resolution Tribunal in British Columbia. There, they really found the regulatory space to let the courts and the lawyers agree that condominium disputes, neighbor disputes in apartment buildings, and small personal injury conflicts could be dealt with by this online tribunal, integrating these 3 steps and services. We worked on this also with Dutch legal expenses insurers in the past. It is used, the model, a little bit, but it's difficult to make it fly. So before giving you the floor, let's look at the critical success factors here. Again, user-centered design is really an issue. And making people feel comfortable on a platform, answering difficult questions about their personal situation, the right mix of online and being able to call somebody. A chatbot will not do it. That's totally clear. Part of the user experience is that you can call somebody who can help you, listen to you. Did I understand it in a good way? Yes, you did. You're on the right track. Yes, how you feel, that's how other people feel as well. Solving the submission problem, which is a big problem anyhow for mediation and dispute resolution. Two people, bringing the two people to one platform, to one room, even to one courtroom can be an issue. Monitoring outcomes it's coming back again and again. If you don't monitor the outcomes that people get, is their life actually improving? Is their problem solved? Then, yeah, what is your criterion for success? Not that the case disappears from your caseload. No, it's yeah, in the end, whether people can solve the problem. Effective public-private partnerships, very, very hard, and there's a lot of it in our report on this, to let the courts, who would be the natural buyers for online dispute resolution services or develop new ones, to engage with private providers. Complicated procurement rules, difficult relationships. What exactly should a adjudicator do there? Does it fit the model of a judge? So getting these public-private partnerships right is really difficult. The government needs to stimulate this, needs to open the regulatory doors for it. Privacy rules can be a big blocker. Rules that both parties need to have their own lawyer. Does your regulation allow that they have one lawyer who can act like a facilitator or not? And of course, a sustainable revenue model. How can you have a pay-as-you-go system into an online dispute resolution system? Very curious to hear your ventures into this field. Again, the Netherlands.
Just a question to you, Marit. Yesterday in the workshop, somebody mentioned the huge amount of cases that eBay solves online on their website. And I think that's a good example of one-stop shop dispute resolution.
Yeah.
Why don't we take this out of context of eBay and just make this much wider spread?
What is your hypothesis? We are talking in this field. I'm part of the online dispute resolution community for 15 years, and it's still eBay as an example. And real innovators came from eBay and tried it outside eBay and didn't succeed. So, what's your hypothesis why the eBay model doesn't work wholesale?
That was my question.
I think it's because it's integrated in eBay and you're already in that journey. So when you're on that journey and it is there just as easy, and it's something you immediately do because it is there at the right time, at the right place. And I think if you get that model out of the context, you find similar places where it's almost
so you would like to have it in the neighborhood where you live, and when you marry, you would go from the municipality to the church and then to the online system to support your marriage and solve disputes.
No,
would that work?
No, I would have in the journey, because you buy something at eBay, and that is when something went wrong.
Yeah.
So you already on the platform of eBay.
Yeah.
So if there is the solution there is offered, and the solution is really in front of you, and it is really easy. So click here, and we find a solution for you. Then you use it. And when I buy something, for example, in the Netherlands at bol.com, the solution is also there. So I use that solution because.
I think maybe one of the reasons why it works with eBay is that I think you sign that you agree to you make use of their platform for
In front,
dispute
yeah.
resolution.
Yeah, it's also very simple.
Yeah.
If you don't submit to the solution, yeah, the submission problem is solved. You're kicked out of the platform. You can't come back.
Yeah.
So
So
maybe
both
the
for
government
buyers
should
and
do that.
sellers, you need to follow the rules. And yeah, that's also, of course, a powerful tool in dispute resolution. Canceling somebody could be a sanction. Not always good.
we could
Any
do that as well,
experiences
can't we?
with? Are there programs inside legal expenses insurers, companies who really bet on online dispute resolution? Is there any developments you want to share here or things you see? Yeah, I see you nodding. Yeah.
We have a project in Switzerland.
Yeah.
We are creating actually a platform for ODR.
Okay. Yeah. And specialized in one type of disputes or overall?
Disputes between two persons in relation to contracts.
Okay. Yeah. 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 So it could be building contracts, that type of.
No, small contracts.
Small contracts.
Buy contracts and.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when people don't buy on eBay but somewhere else.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Yeah. That's yes, please. Yeah, for consumer disputes, these rules are there. So the bigger sellers have to open up an online platform. I know there are some reports from the EU on how many times the website that refers people to these ODR systems is used. Actual use of the ODR platforms, I don't know. I would also like to warn at consumer problems, buying an iPhone that doesn't work or another washing machine that doesn't work. It's not the most pressing problems that people experience. These are the life crises, and that's where you can add most value. So yeah, we are looking to the future of online dispute resolution for these types of problems also. We are nearing the end. A final question to you. Game changers, are they in your mind? Other game changers we miss? The critical success factors, do you see them? Should we continue this game changer work, or will we?
I have more a general question, if I may, because
Yeah.
most of the game changers, as far as I see, they are based on like both parties really willing to solve the dispute and ready to talk to each other or to have a mediation, or at least both parties are willing to solve the issue.
Yeah.
In reality, it's sometimes just one that is, let's say, one thinks something, the other is not willing to do something. And then, as far as I know, in our world, let's say there's only one way to push both parties to one place where somebody is entitled to make a decision, and that's the traditional justice and courthouses. So, in my opinion, honestly, it could be different, but the solution is maybe not only in the game changers, but also in changing the existing system, because of course it's far too expensive and far too slow, but the solution could be there. And then by bridging the gap, it's not by building a huge orange part in your bridge, but just by making the blue part much bigger, by changing things in the existing structure. Because, for example, in Belgium, why can only lawyers go to court? The normal people are not allowed to, because they could do it maybe just as well for a much lower price. And why does it take so long to get? You could also change the blue thing instead of the orange one, is my personal opinion. Because if there is not a system where people are forced or pushed to go to, it might be difficult to solve a lot
thank you
of
for
issues.
this intervention. I think what you say is very, very true. As setting up these game changers from the private market by insurers, you can't make them successful unless the judges come to the online dispute resolution platform as adjudicators that are giving binding solutions. Then integrating with mediation makes sense. That's what they basically did in British Columbia. They said, these cases don't go to court anymore, they go to the new tribunal, which is a new court, an innovative court. And it's part of the story, and that's also one of my points in the talk of this morning. If we want to change the system, we have to build this bridge from both sides, and it should be integrated. At the courts and the private consensual dispute resolution should be integrated, and then the system can become effective. This was my dream last question. Thank you very much. Thank you, and see you at lunch.